So you need to grapple with this in a very strategic way. So we have to have a strong leadership committed for long-term reforms. Third, no matter how much resources you have or you don't have, you have to invest in human capital, because this is the most important element and the most important assets you have. And in Africa, we have abundant of human capital. So this is a very important element that we need to focus on. And with that, with human capital, you have to leverage the technological advancements and the digitalizations, because you can reach a high level of productivity gains by leveraging investment in human capital coupled with investment in digitalizations. And in this continent, we see a key success if we have these two combinations working together. You've talked in your questions in terms of what are the efficiencies that we are doing and accountability. But before we talk about efficiencies, let me highlight a point on effectiveness, because sometimes being efficient, it means deregulations, removing any regulations, and that sometimes doesn't lead to success. So you need to focus on being effective in getting where you want to go. So we have a vision, we are trying to be effective in achieving our vision, and we are searching on all efficient paths to get us the fastest way to our vision. So I think that's a very important distinction to make. When it comes to accountability, I think a lot of countries talk about accountability in different ways. You have advanced economies talking about accountability, emerging markets, and low-income countries. But when we talk about accountability, it is not a universal term that we use. I think it's country-specific term. Basically, the way we look at accountability is to make accountable all of the people in this country to their values, their core values. So in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and Africa and other continents, we are accountable to abide by our values, our tradition, our work ethics, and to make sure that it is enshrined in legal basis into our institutions to make sure that we achieve our targets. We have one success element that we have done, and I think a lot of countries would benefit from, is now with the whole government apparatus after Vision 2030 has changed. We broke all of the silos between ministries and government entities, and we are working on synergies. And I think it's very important when we are building institutions and building capacities is to not being focused solely in each individual entity in silos, but to look at the big picture and to break all silos and to ensure that they work in synergies. In finishing, let me focus on some of the innovative strategies as the Ministry of Finance that we have done. We have launched a digital platform to do all of the transactions, all the procurement in digital, transformative, and transparent way. We have speed up the transactional time to make sure that procurement is done in a very efficient way. And we have minimized the cost of transactions. And we have also tackled any corruption elements that could be triggered from that angle. We also made it very easy when it comes to the taxations, with the e-invoicing, with the e-appliance in terms of how to return your tax, how to get your tax. And I think that's make the consumers and the economy is more agile to changes in the market conditions. Last but not least, you cannot succeed when you don't apply inclusiveness in your day-to-day work. So we are paying particular attention on how to integrate women into the labor force, and we used fiscal policy to support women in the labor force. And we have launched the Women Empowerment Initiative in the budget to make sure that women get all the opportunities to allow them to get to the labor force. And I'm really pleased to announce that we have achieved our labor force participation in the women's, for female, before our vision target. So that tells you how much, if you have clear vision and you have clear settings of rules, that you will get it even ahead of time. That's, I think, in a nutshell, our experience.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Al-Karif, for sharing those perspectives. Very interesting indeed in terms of giving us reflections on how to stem the flow of sort of capital loss. I like very much the digitalization point, inclusivity, tackling corruption, and so on. So now we're going to move to Dr. Babel Kofler. So while governance and institutional reforms remain key to catalyzing and scaling up capital mobilization, a collaborative approach by Africa and its development partners can complement actions to bolster outcomes. So amid the shrinking level of budgets by many developing partners. How is Germany supporting Africa's efforts in making governance, institutions, and the rule of law the bedrock for mobilizing and retaining capital for its development?
Well, thank you for the question. You were telling me I have 5 minutes, but that's a complicated question. I don't know if I make that. No. First of all, I would like to underline that the topic of this session is of utmost importance. I had a few months ago a delegation of young African leaders in my office in Berlin, and it's sometimes surprising what needs are expressed. And one need which was expressed was the need for strong institutions in their countries and on the continent. And I think that was quite wise of those young Africans insisting on strengthening of institutions. We learned with the African Economic Outlook that yes, private investment is a prerequisite for development, but it's not enough. And Professor Rama, you were telling us, well, private investment is coming for doing business. That's fine. But there's more to development than this. That's prerequisite, but it's not enough. So for that, you need strong institutions. And I think the first thing we all need is the political will to build up those institutions and to maintain them. And that has a lot to do with investing in people, also in the people who are running administrative sectors then, or who are running state business then at the end of the day. And if we don't finance that, that at the end of the day is weakening the whole income mobilization of a country, and at the end of the day, then is not good for the development. So at the end of the day, I'm talking about strengthening tax inspectors, strengthening administrators in governments, strengthening the whole administrative system of countries in order to mobilize domestic resources. That is also one thing which has to do with the budget debate internationally, but not only. It's about independency, and it's about what countries decide to do for themselves, and therefore you need, of course, strong domestic resources. You need it also if you want to lower tariffs, and if we talk about a free trade zone on the African continent, the dependency on tariffs has to decrease, and therefore you need another source of income. And I think those things are only possible if you have strong administration and a political will to use the money. Taxation is not for taxation's sake, but to use the money to invest in public sector, in public goods, in public services, so the citizens of the country see that there is a benefit in paying taxes. And that has to work together, and that's something where our cooperation is coming in, because we are working on both sides, on strengthening the administration, strengthening also with the means of digitalization, the possibility on taxation, but, and I underline that, on the other hand, also being transparent in the budget and making clear where the budget should be spent for public services. I was underlining there has to be a benefit for the countries. At the same time, it's important also with rich countries like on the African continent, rich on resources. There has to be a benefit in exploiting, for example, natural resources. This benefit has to stay in the countries, or at least come back in a certain way. The one thing are the jobs created around it, decent jobs. On the other hand, there has to be contracting also with international partners, which is giving a fair share to the countries of origin. So although strengthening these legal procedures are of utmost importance, and that's another field of cooperation, and that all in all it has to do with good financial governance, it has to do with transparency, it also has to do, I quote it because I heard it already in other things. It has to do with anti-corruption. It has to be crystal clear to really strengthen rule of law. And that all together is something we are probably working also on with the African Development Bank, because there are a lot of projects on that field, which a combination of our national engagement together with what the African Development Bank is doing. It's crystal clear it's not one size fits all. It has to be embedded in regional and national traditions, needs, ideas, perspectives. So it's not one thing we design in Berlin and has to be implemented. It's a conversation, and that's of utmost importance for us. I want to underline that at the end. It's of utmost importance that we together develop ideas how we can solve those urgent problems of financing in various countries and how to really strengthen the administrations in the various countries.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Babo, for those reflections. A new way to do partnership is what I pick up from your reflections, telling us very much about investing in people, a culture of transparency, and more. I'd like now to move to Honorable Augustine Gafuan. In many parts of Africa, licensing and permits critical to attracting investment in natural resource sector often involve opaque processes that are established through direct negotiations rather than competitive bidding. So Liberia has embarked on an economic plan, action plan centered on ambitious reforms, including beneficial ownership, transparency, open contracting, and whistleblower protections. So Mr. Minister, kindly share with us key lessons on how these reforms have strengthened governance and institutions and have supported natural resource management in Liberia.
Thank you, Joy, and let me thank the African Development Bank family for this invitation. A family I was a member of just last September. It's good to be back here and that with the family. Let me start by saying that my country, Liberia, is a small country, although it's the oldest African republic, got our independence in 1847. We've had our own fair share of challenges. You all remember the devastating Liberian Civil War. We lost more than 200,000 persons. It ended in 2003, and then we got on a path of democracy. Since then, the country has been largely stable. We've had, I think, 4 free, fair, transparent elections. There's been smooth transfer of power, which is key. And then I want to stress that stability, no matter what we do in institutions building, if the environment is unstable, everything scuppers. So one of the first achievements we've managed as a country, across political parties, across ethnic divides, and across religious divides, is to ensure that democracy thrives. Peaceful transfer of power, and people carry their grievances to the ballot box. That's one of the main things we've achieved. Now, we are a resource-endowed country, also facing some of the effects of the natural resource curves. One of the things Liberia did was to accede to the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, ERTI, as early as 2007. In fact, Liberia was the first country in Africa to have been declared ERTI compliant. And then we were the first country that added the forestry sector to the ERTI initiative, making sure that things are reported and beneficial owners are known. And then we have a process where these things are audited. We have improved our business registry such that beneficial owners are known. We have a competitive process. We are not perfect. We have our fair set of challenges, but we are every day learning lessons. We have passed a Whistleblowers Act. We have a Public Procurement and Concessions Act that guides our processes. We are now trying to improve procurement, leading to what we call an e-procurement platform. Few key ministries are now on the platform, and we are transitioning more, 50 more in the next year. We have the IFMIS, Integrated Financial Management Information System, that is making government processes transparent. Just recently, with the World Bank and some other partners, we managed to have instituted a process through a project called called GREAT, where we are digitizing processes, not only at the Ministry of Finance, but at the Revenue Authority, at the General Auditing Commission, at the Liberia Anti-Corruption Commission, and even at the Public Accounts Committee of the legislature. And one of the things we did, and that was years back, was to try to institutionalize and professionalize internal audit. Now in Liberia, internal auditors are not necessarily hired by ministers. They are centrally hired through a competitive process and deployed across government. One of the other places we want to go, because that's where government loses a whole lot, procurement. We can talk everything about mobilizing capital, but the capital mobilized must go to development. One area of leakage is through procurement. If we do not bring value for money in procurement, transparency in procurement, mobilized capital will leak. So one thing we are working on is to professionalize this role such that procurement directors are not hired by heads of entity. They are professionally hired and deployed and rotated such that they don't go they don't go native, because some heads of entities, when they change them, they want to move with the procurement directors for obvious reasons. So we are learning lessons. We are building our code system. We have a commercial code where people can go and carry their grievances. We have a vibrant judiciary that does not have to agree with the executive. They countervail the executive or legislature in which the executive has just one-third. So these countervailing systems are helping to make progress in spite of our challenges. And our challenges are many, and it's not my duty to even start to list them. But I can say that from where we started as a war-devastated country to where we are, Liberia has made some tremendous progress, and we are still on that path of progress. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for sharing your reflections, your experience, and what we're seeing as emerging results in Liberia. We're going to move to Dr. Heidi Rombaut, who is going to tell us a little bit more about her experience. So building lasting peace and stability is crucial to achieving inclusive and sustainable development. What have you learned about how to build effective institutions, and perhaps how it relates to the point that the minister just spoke about, this question of peace?
Thank you very much. And I think, to be very honest, that I have little to add to what my colleague from Liberia just shared, which was very rich and I think speaks exactly to that point. You know, from our experience, indeed, I think what we see as being critical is that good governance is actually the oil in a cogwheel system between people, political leaders, and investors, be it national or international investors. And so just to center my intervention maybe around these two ideas, first of all, what is needed? I think what is first needed is really that conviction that indeed good governance is that oil in that triangle between people, political leaders, and investors. And that this good governance and these institutions are really enablers and not just annoying things that we have to deal with. It's not just transparency for the sake of transparency. It is not just accountability for the sake of accountability. It is when we have transparency, when we have accountability, it actually serves not only people directly in terms of service delivery, but it serves the economic development, because that's when you attract investors. And I think the data, we have sufficient data and research that actually shows that there is a direct correlation between strong institutions and attracting investors. Investors want a predictable environment. And that is also so important when building peace. And I think what we have learned is that it is not one after the other, but you have to invest at the same time in all of these aspects. You cannot just say like, oh, we will first deal with the relationship between political leaders and the people, and the investors will come later. Because the people actually need the investors to actually have jobs. And jobs are important for their own opportunities in life, and that contributes to stability. If people don't have opportunities in life, that actually creates more instability. And so this intrinsic connection between all these three elements is something that we've taken into account to actually not work one after the other, but you have to work on all three aspects together. Because it's also when you improve your taxes, and you improve the transparency, that indeed you can reduce the corruption, you have more money to invest in your human development. When you have more money to invest in your human development, you actually have better skilled people that actually are available on the market for the investors actually to also take up a productive role in the economy. Now the second idea is that building institutions is basically a never-ending story. And from our approach, and I think if you allow me so to say, I think we are also learning, and I think we're collectively constantly learning on how to build institutions. It is never a done job. And that's also thanks to technology, because we see new opportunities indeed of digitalization of taxes and fluidity, bringing more fluidity to it. And this is, I think, also where the mutual partnership between Europe and Africa can really be a leverage for both continents. I learned about digital payment and paying through my phone in Kenya, where I learned about M-Pesa long before it was established in Europe. And so I think with the digital leapfrogging that we see, digitalization should not become a goal of and in itself, but with the youth that you have on the continent, with the creativity that is there, with the potential, I think we can exchange really in a mutual beneficial partnership so that we can really build on each other's strengths and then also facilitate the connections between the different continents.
Heidi, for those reflections reminding us about the tripartite, the three-legged approach, the partnership between those elements, and really that it's an ongoing process, so continued learning, continued practice. We're now going to go to Dr. Jean Kaseya. You know, you embody this question around health is wealth. And you know, COVID-19 really demonstrated to us that human capital is not just skills and productive capacity of citizens, but also dependent on the state of their health. So you have advocated for a transformative New Deal for Africa CDC with the primary objective of strengthening health security across Africa. This undertaking involves establishing sustainable and innovative financing mechanisms, enhancing robust governance structures, cultivating technical expertise, strengthening systems, efficient response to health crises. So how are you implementing this agenda? And how, in your view, should Africa mobilize and allocate capital to ensure the health sector delivers a favorable environment for investment, economic growth, and job creation?
Thank you so much. Our leaders, African head of state, they learned from COVID, because COVID, as you know, killed people, but destroyed business, economies. And they decided to build a very strong, powerful Africa CDC. This is the only CDC with this kind of power in the world: political power, strategic power, and technical power. And they decided to appoint, to elect a director general. We see with FDB, their governors electing the president. But for Africa CDC, it's African head of state that are appointing the director general of Africa CDC. Why they are doing that? To give him the convening power to bring head of state, to bring ministers, and to lead this agenda of health. You are right, when I was elected, it was around the New Deal. New Deal means bringing back to Africa our health security. Let me give you a concrete example of what's happening now. Every day, last week I was in Geneva. Next week I will be in Marrakesh with Mo Ibrahim Foundation. I'm advocating, I'm saying to people, the next pandemic is coming. You like it, you don't like it, my job is to tell you the truth. Why I'm saying that? From 2022 to 2024, we see an increase of 41% of outbreaks. My brother from Liberia must know that currently we are supporting Liberia to fight Mpox outbreak. And what we are doing, when you see this kind of increase on outbreaks, you know that there will be some mutations of virus. You need vaccines, you need medicines, but we don't have. This is the second pillar. We don't have medicines because we don't have a vibrant local manufacturing in Africa. We are still depending at 95% from external support. And to make things worse, we don't have financial resources. With this aid cut, we are losing more than 70% of external assistance to health system. I had to fly to a number of African countries. You will see clinics are locked. I see even in some countries in Southern Africa, people moving to South Africa to look for ARVs. That is the situation currently in Africa. What are we doing to overcome this challenge? First, to push for strong local manufacturing. Dr. Aidi was here, and our colleagues from Germany, they are supporting us in Africa to have this local manufacturing agenda. Yesterday I was discussed with my friend Adeshina. We are working together for that. But when we talk about health financing, this is the major pillar today. If you go to Africa CDC website, you will find this document, Africa's Health Financing in a New Era. This is a document that was developed when I called African head of state, African ministers, because this is the new vision. We want Africa to be out of dependency of external resources. If we are not independent, we'll be slaves forever, will not support our health systems. And this one, we are calling for more domestic resources, more innovative financing, more blended finance, and good governance. Because what is killing also Africa is the weak governance system that we have in place. I think this is a translation of the New Deal, and we are moving with this agenda. We hope by the next 2 years, we'll start to manufacture at least 20% of our product, and we start to become more independent financially. Please take time to read this book. You'll be inspired. If some of you want to join us, because they are head of state leading this committee, let me know. My contacts are available. I'm a public person. You can find my contact. Just send me your email. We'll consider you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kaseya. I think you really embody vision, action, innovation. I'm going to lift this up again because I was quite fascinated by what I saw. Africa's health financing in the new era. The ideas are here, at least for the health sector. So encouraging you to look at that. We have perhaps another 5 minutes, and I'd like to come back to each and every one of you for a minute each, just to give us your sense of where we go from here. In a minute each. We'll start with you, Dr. Kaseya.
Where I want to go is where Dr. Al-Karef landed. We want Africa to become the next generation of GCC, because GCC today is between Europe or Western countries and Africa. Africa is the future. And I want to congratulate them for the wonderful job they are doing. This is what we see Africa will be. With sustainable health systems, health finance in place, local manufacturing, that will also sustain the business and economy of our countries.
Thank you very much. Over to you, Babo.
Yeah, something was already said. I would also like to underline, I would love to see a lot of strong countries independently deciding for what they want to use their domestic resources, having strong administration muscles to do so. That is prerequisite for job creation, especially for young people. It's about decent work, I want to underline always. It's not only about having jobs, it's about having jobs with dignity, so people can make a living on that, and coming up with perspective. And that I would love to see then is also leading into a peaceful development of many areas and countries. Because like my colleague from Belgium was saying, If you don't have perspectives, it's harder to keep peace, and that's something I think we all need in these times, that we strike for peaceful solutions of challenging problems. That's something where we need also the maybe sometimes boring sounding administrative and legal measures, and I would love to see them implemented.
Thank you very much. We now come to Minister Gafwan. And as I give you the floor, I'd just like to alert the colleagues that we will, in the transition, want to see that video. Over to you, Minister.
Thank you very much. Just on a humorous note, but not too humorous, when Doc said that the next pandemic is coming, and we in Liberia, we had Ebola that killed almost 5,000 persons, and then we have pandemics, the COVID pandemic rather. But I can say that the systems we built, the support we got during the Ebola crisis helped us a whole lot to deal positively with the COVID. And let me say thanks to all of the support systems from Africa CDC and others. We now have an mpox situation, but that's been dealt with. I want to say, you asked the way forward. We, just in February, March, we were hit not by a pandemic in a way, but by a shock. USAID had been Liberia's second largest donor, next to the World Bank. We had 29 projects. As we speak, 28 of those projects have been canceled. We've lost, in terms of commitments, almost $370 million. And that was unplanned. And it's a shock we're dealing with. It affects the health sector, it affects education and agriculture. With our limited budgets, we have to be finding resources to keep school feeding programs going on and to keep drugs in hospital that USAID was funding. So what's the way ahead? We have only one option: domestic resource mobilization. We are a resource in our country, and we're trying to leverage the most out of our resources. So we are investing heavily in digitization. We are improving tax efficiency and administration. We are also trying to get the best value from concession negotiation. Just recently, we're talking with the Africa Legal Support Facility for some help, because we are not poor, but what contracts or concessions we agree with concessionaires, some of whom are very powerful, will be the way to go. So that's the path we're going, domestic resource mobilization, so that we can do for ourselves and don't get overly terrified when people cut off their assistance. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. Let's come to you, Dr. Al-Karif. Parting shot.
Thank you very much. I've listened carefully to our esteemed speakers, and it struck me that we have very diverse expertise and very diverse experiences. And I really think the first thing comes to my mind in the future is that we have to have cooperations bilaterally and multilaterally. I think we could share experiences in our cases. We could learn from one another. And I think our Vision 2030 is designed in a way that it will have positive externality regionally and globally. We are known for being a key exporter of natural resources. But not a lot of countries and a lot of people know that we are also one of the largest exporters of remittances, which plays a key role in a lot of countries. And also the know-how. We have recently opened an office of the IMF in Riyadh. It's dedicated for capacity development in the region. This session is about building capacity, and I think we, as the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, believe strongly that building capacity is very productive and very long-lasting for a lot of countries, and we are really keen to embark cooperation with other countries and other institutions, including the African Development Bank.
Okay, I thought the session was closed. We were cutting off the mics as it was done in the formal session earlier. Well, thank you so much. And actually, my final idea very much coincides with the idea that we had just heard, because my idea, if I think about a thought looking forward, what is up there? You know, many of us have said after the COVID crisis, you know, never waste a good crisis, etc. We have to learn from it, but not just in the health sector, I think. I think we have to learn also when it comes to building institutions, to good governance, that we're all interconnected. And so what I would love to see in the future, indeed, is that we leapfrog together for our common future, because we're all interconnected. Our people, our economy, our human development. And yes, I confirm there's already so much going on. We exchange experts, our experts on taxation. We have partnerships through the IMF or directly bilateral where there's exchange of expertise. And again, there is a mutual learning, because I also heard sometimes we're over-regulated. So we also have to deregulate sometimes, or do smarter regulation. So it's this never-ending process. There is this fantastic initiative, the ALSF here, which is really doing a good job. We can also learn from that. So I think my vision for the future is let's leapfrog together for strong institutions for our common future.
Thank you very much to this distinguished panel. I think you all agree with me. We started off by asking ourselves this question: how do we build these institutions? We're going to go into a second panel, but I think it will be a loss if we don't try to sort of capture the learnings that have come out of this first one. And so what I pick really is that vision is key, but it must go with action. The second piece is that this is really about culture, a culture of effective institutional management. It has to be, this culture must be rooted in people. That's the second piece. The third piece is that we have tools of engagement. We talked about digitalization. We talked about procurement. We talked about the next generation of audit, and we had examples of how that goes. The fourth point, and there are only 5, so bear with me. The fourth point is that there has to be commitment in what you do with those resources mobilized. The commitment is to ensure they're invested in the public good. And then the last example is the last sort of piece we take from this is really about this idea that partnerships matter and that there's a new generation of partnerships emerging. These partnerships are co-created, they're co-owned, there's co-learning, and as we heard, the learning does not stop. So I'd like for you to please thank our panelists in the first session. I invite you to please sort of like take your seats at the front.
Institutions are at the heart of development. In Africa, they have played a key role in cushioning the impact of the multiple shocks buffeting the continent. The African Union's Agenda 2063, the bank's 2024 to 2033 10-year strategy and High Five's development priorities place governance and institutions at the core of transformation. Effective institutions attract investment, ensure transparency, and enable efficient resource management. Despite significant commitments to reform, institutional weaknesses and governance deficiencies are evident in pervasive corruption, frequent policy reversals, political instability, and poor public sector performance. Only a handful of African countries rank comparably with advanced economies. It's time to triple the effort. Institutional reforms, anti-corruption action, stronger rule of law, better public services. Welcome to the knowledge event on building effective institutions in Africa for harnessing capital for development.
All right, I think we all see that powerful video and we're charged for the next panel. As we look into the second panel, a statistic struck me this morning as I was preparing to come into this panel, and it's in the Africa Economic Outlook. It quantifies the capital leakage, 587 billion, Prof, if I'm right, annually. So what we're really talking about here is so crucial because institutions matter to stemming those flows. whether they be through illicit financial flows, profit sharing, I think it was called, or corruption. And so as I invite our second panel, we're going to dig deeper and try to understand how it is that we can really strengthen our institutions. It is my honor then to invite Mr. Mamadou Biteye, Executive Secretary, Africa Capacity Building Foundation. Round of applause as he comes up, please. We also have Mr. Ismail Nabe, Honorable Ms. Ismail Nabe, Minister of Planning and International Cooperation and Alternate Governor, Republic of Guinea. Minister, welcome. We have the wonderful Ms. Ndi Nancy Saibo. She's the founder and executive director, Actions for Development and Empowerment, and country director, Follow the Money. We have Mr. Araba Rahmani, who is from Zenith Bank, from the Paris office. And then we have His Excellency Uwizeye Ibrahim, Minister of Hydraulic, Energy and Mining from Burundi. Okay, so let us start the conversation. And I'm going to come to you, Minister from Guinea. In recent years, African governments have been reassessing their control of critical minerals. During the presentation of the AEO report, our chief economist, Professor Orama, highlighted the need for natural resource sovereignty on the continent. And your country, Guinea, has recently embarked on sweeping sector-wide reforms aimed at curbing regulatory violations, boosting revenue collection, and ensuring that mining activities contribute more and directly to national development goals. And so here is the question. Can you share with us the practical nature of these reforms? What lessons have you learned in terms of what can be drawn on making reforms enhance natural resource management and ensure that foreign and domestic investments are fully aligned with national priorities?
Thank you very much, Madam. Let me just first of all send the greetings of the people of Guinea to the people of Cote d'Ivoire, but also a great organization for AFDB here in Cote d'Ivoire. You rightly, I think the first panel limit right is about institutions. I think Africa, we are very much fortunate to have human capital. We are fortunate to have resources, but what extremely, I think the hidden resources is institutions. So we need to have institutions that can help to develop, but also to unite the country. Yes, Guinea is pretty much a resource, country. But, I always like to ask people, when they say Guinea, there are a couple of Guinea in the region. You have Guinea-Bissau, you have Equatorial Guinea, you have Papua New Guinea in the Pacific, but our Guinea is the Republic of Guinea. Therefore, is a country whose, the motto is rebuilding our institutions. The head of our president came to power because there was lack of strong institutions. And then, therefore, the mining sector, we are #1 in the minerals, bauxite, iron ore. To come to your question, Madam, what you rightly said, Guinea, when we came, the president came to power, he said, normally we are taking more than 200 million tons of bauxite every year to take it to the ship to send to elsewhere. He said, moving forward, you need to do transformation. That transformation will create jobs, will give more revenues. Because when you take just mathematically 200 million tons, if it's $2, you have 400 million tons. But when you transform it, you can multiply that by 20. So we call, because the president said international cooperation is important. We don't want to cancel no licenses. We sit down, we renegotiated, and we said you have to do the, we have to do the transformation in the country. And eventually some of our friend partners were saying there's no electricity. But, in their convention, it was written that they will build a refinery maybe 1 or 2 years' time. But they have been doing more than 10 years, no refinery. So we told them, look, that's not an issue because you know that the energy will be coming. But thanks God, now they are building. We have companies now. We said either you can do individually or you can do collectively. So we just launched groundbreaking one of the refineries, and we are working for other partners also to do refineries. One of the biggest projects now everybody's talking about Guinea is the Simandou project. It's iron ore project, about $20 billion capex, which is comprised with construction of an for railway, 600 kilometers from Liberia border to come to Conakry. I know my brother here, we have some discussion on that, but that's transforming the country, but also the construction of the port. We are using the mine to transform our economy. Like our friend from the Gulf, they have done it. The president said we need to use our mineral to transform our economy, like our brothers from the Gulf have done it. Beyond that, we are drafting a national vision called Vision 2040. This vision is economic development sustainable plan. This is based on 5 pillars. The first pillar is agro-industry and commerce. We have land, but you have to develop in agriculture. The second pillar is education and culture. Therefore, we are building human capital. The third is infrastructure, transportation, and technology. And the fourth is finance, economy, and insurance. And the last one is healthcare and well-being. This is a 5 pillar that is pretty much on our program 2040 vision. And this program will never be if we don't have the enablers. One of the enablers of this program is the project, Simandou project, about $20 billion. The second enabler is the creation of sovereign wealth fund. Now we are just discussing our friend from Saudi Arabia, our friend from Singapore, and Botswana to learn what is the best governance sovereign wealth fund, because the money that we are getting, we don't want to just, you can take the money you are getting from mineral, distribute it to all the population. At the end of the day, I think the money, after 1 month, the money will do no more money. So we want to multiply that money in the sovereign wealth fund. The third enabler is the rating of our economy. And the fourth is modernization of our administration. So by modernizing our administration, the taxes will be increased, and also the many processes will be faster, the procurement, all this we have to modernize. But on all, this vision is based on human capital. If we don't have the strong human capital, we'll never get in the strong institution. We believe that, the Madam said, is a triangular to put the strong institution in this triangular. In our vision, is a circular. It's a circular partnership, circular cooperation. In the middle is a strong institution. As one of the presidents said, we don't need strong men, we need a strong institution. And in Africa, we believe that in Guinea, most likely the vision that the president is taking, and then at the last minute, as I said, the foundation is the human capital, but it's a good governance and rule of law. If we don't have good governance, no rule of law, fighting corruption, all the resources will never serve our people. I'll stop here for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Minister Nabe, for that excellent setting of the scene in terms of what bold leadership does at the country level to really shift the ground on this question. Minister Uwize, I'm coming to you. You're Minister of Hydraulics, Mines, Energy in Burundi. How can developing countries access credit, especially in this regime where we know that aid is on the decline? What are your thoughts?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, let me speak maybe in French because I can make many mistakes in this language. I'm sorry for that. Comme vient effectivement de me poser la question, étant ministre de l'hydraulique, de l'énergie et des mines au Burundi, le constat est que le pays en soi est un pays en voie de développement, un pays qui a une vision d'un Burundi émergent en 2040, Burundi développé en 2060, mais étant donné les matières minérales que nous avons au pays, qui regorgent le pays, et quand je vois encore une fois, étant le ministre de l'énergie que je dispose aujourd'hui au pays, et que le développement ne dépend pas effectivement de la quantité ou de l'énergie installée, capacité installée au pays. Un pays qui est enclavé, qui ne touche pas effectivement sur les océans pour l'exploitation de nos ressources minières et pouvoir faire quoi? Les acheminer à l'extérieur. Et vraiment, c'est un problème. Encore deux, c'est un pays aujourd'hui auquel la FMI nous dit ceci, nous avons le droit d'avoir des prêts concessionnels ou des aides. Je vous dis franchement, aucun pays ne peut se développer uniquement via les aides, jamais. Donc, pour développer un pays et même pour arriver à notre vision que nous nous sommes donnée, il faudrait qu'il y ait franchement des crédits et donner des crédits conséquents pour l'exploitation de nos ressources minières que nous avons. C'est un pays qui a beaucoup de minerais, notamment le nickel en grande quantité, les terres rares en grande quantité, les lithium en grande quantité, les titanes en grande quantité, manganèse, on a pas mal de quantités de minerais là-bas. Donc, quand j'analyse exactement les rivières que nous avons, je peux les exploiter et avoir 1700 mégawatts de l'énergie. Et j'ai besoin effectivement de autour de 1000 mégawatts effectivement pour que je puisse affecter ça aux raffineries minières. Et là alors, pour que nos pays puissent se développer, il faut qu'ils puissent avoir l'accès au crédit, non seulement au crédit concessionnel, et non aux aides uniquement. Les aides, oui, ça nous aide. Les crédits concessionnels, oui. Mais il faudrait donner le pouvoir, il faudrait ouvrir à ces pays d'avoir les aides, étant donné que la matière est là. Après la transformation, on peut rembourser effectivement ces aides-là. Raison pour laquelle je trouve qu'il y a un défi dans un pays qui n'a pas le droit au crédit. Et ça devient justement un problème, effectivement, pour se développer. Voilà, madame.
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup, monsieur le ministre, pour avoir partagé ces idées avec nous. I'm going to move now to the Africa Capacity Building Foundation. And I'm coming to you, Mr. Mamadou Biteye. A well-functioning institutions foster public trust, reduce corruption, and enhance the ability of governments to implement policies that generate and effectively allocate resources for development. So as one of the continent's premier capacity building institutions, within the current global economic and geopolitical dynamics, what aspects of capacity building needs to be reimagined and provided to policymakers to ensure that Africa drives its own development?
Thank you very much. Let me first say that although the question considers institutions, I'm very glad that all speakers emphasize the aspects of human capital as well, because institutions are as effective as their human capital is. I often say and give an image about this, to say that if you need a good plant, you need at least two things: a good seed and a fertile soil. You can think of human capital as the good seed, and you can think of functioning and effective institutions as the fertile soil. In 2022, ACBF undertook a series of research with the question of, do we have the institutions that are fit for purpose to address the different challenges actually facing the continent? And this has shaped our strategy 2023-2022. And I want to talk about 3 elements that are extremely important to addressing your question. You talked about trust. It's critical because today we are in a world, in general, where citizens have lost trust in the public institutions. And these are effectively driven by different things. You can talk about the sense of accountability, transparency, inclusivity, all those things that citizens perceive are not embedded or displayed by their public institutions. What Kevin Urama calls state capture, when appointments at the helm of institutions are based on political affiliation rather than technical capabilities. All of that erodes trust in institutions. And to address that, to your question, 3 things are extremely important. One, as I said, is functioning institutions. And for functioning institutions, it is important to look at 10 critical elements that stems from strong governance, strong leadership, clear systems and processes that are enforced, strong performance management systems that are not implemented as box ticking every year, but that are used as an important instrument to ensure that the expertise in the institution stays up to date and fit for the purpose, etc. So this is why African Capacity Building Foundation has developed an instrument called the Institutional Accelerator Model, which uses very advanced techniques to assess the weaknesses and strengths of institutions, looking from governance to program implementation, to people, to reporting, to accountability, all the different elements, and identifying and putting together institutional capacity strengthening programs that we implement. Today, ACBF is implementing and offering these services to different institutions, including in the CADAS project that we have with the African Development Bank, but also to other philanthropic institutions and certain governments. Second element then comes to human capital. When we oftentimes look at human capital strengthening, we often emphasize on technical skills. But for effectiveness, what is really critical are the soft skills. Someone said in the previous panel that it's an issue of culture. Soft skills are extremely important and shape leaders, actually, to really embody that sense of public service, of accountability to citizens, to probity that curb corruption and lack of accountability. So this is why also ACBF has put together a program that is called LEAPS, Leadership Excellence in African Public Sector, that targets senior leaders to train them with those attributes and competencies in mind. LEAPS today is administered in 6 African countries, and we have a cohort of 78 senior leaders, directors and above in government actually graduating in June. But it's not, we talk about the power of strong leadership, but I want to emphasize distributed leadership in institutions. Because oftentimes in institutions you have a strong leader at the helm, but your mid-level manager actually is not owning or is not empowered to actually really manage and get things done. So this is something also we need to pay real attention to. And finally, I want to talk about knowledge. Knowledge is really the currency that will bring all of that together. Capacity to innovate, capacity to read your environment, identify opportunities, and actually utilize them. I want to say also just one more thing, I think, which was important. One of the features of LEAPS, the Leadership Excellence in African Public Sector Program, it's 4 modules, but why I want to emphasize 2 of them. I think the 2 other modules, which are really how to lead a team, how to lead an organization, are something we see in many organizations, in many such programs. But the 2 distinguishing modules of this LEAPS is the module around leading self. Because you owe to lead, be able to lead yourself, embody and adopt some of those features to be able to lead strongly. And the last one that I want to emphasize is leading in your ecosystem, because this is oftentimes fragmented. For an institution to be effective, it should be able to lead in the ecosystem and bring other institutions along to implement the vision they have. And lastly, and very quickly, the knowledge point is really about understanding. One example I will give is today, in the context of shrinking fiscal space, we emphasize the need for domestic resource mobilization. But we are missing a new opportunity, which is the digital economy. And I want to here make a difference between digital taxation and taxation of the digital economy. The former being really upgrading your systems and adopting digitalization as a tool versus understanding the exponentially growing digital economy with new business models, new services being offered in our countries that we are not capturing. Only 12% of tax administrations in Africa are beginning to understand and tapping into these opportunities. So let me stop it there, but I think 3 things: human capital, strong institutions, and knowledge will be able to make these institutions effective to better harness capital in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Mamadou Biteye. Very powerful point you made around the fact of governing yourself within your ecosystem. That has stayed with me. It's really about us. It's about you. It's about all of us and how we respond to these questions in our own environments. So, Nancy, I'm coming to you now. Statistics show that more than 1 in 5 working-age Africans start a new business, and more than 75% of youth plan to start 1 in 5 years. We have seen how transformative and dynamism of the we've seen how transformative and dynamic Africa's youth are. And they are Africa's most prized asset. They're so dynamic in leveraging technology and innovation to drive solutions and change their economic conditions. Yet, sustaining the growth momentum of this transformative entrepreneurship is constrained by a lack of supportive business environment, including low access to finance and burdensome regulations. So here's the question. You are, along with millions of others, the future of the continent. In fact, you're the present of the continent and the future. So what urgent measures are needed to ensure that African governments and the private sector fully optimize the potential of the youth?
Thank you so much. I'm Condi Nancy, like you said. I am representing young people. I'm representing women that are building the spaces. We often say that we want a seat on the table, but now we are creating our own table with what we have, with our passion, with tech, with like everything, every resources. So African youth are not just dreaming, like you said. We are designing. We are not just designing businesses. We are leading with revolution, with hope, with power, and with tech. So before I answer your question, I just want to tell you that we are watching what is happening. We are following the money. We're not just following the money because we want more resources for our businesses. We want more resources for our dreams. We are following the money because there are a lot of resources that are being injected for young persons, but young persons are not even aware about these opportunities. We're talking about corruption. We're talking about transparency and accountability, but we don't know how intentional some of our leaders or our government are with when they start talking about inclusivity, young persons, and women, and that's why we are following the money. We want to know where the money is going to, because if you look at all of the African continent, the national budget, they'll always say there's something for young people, there's something for young people, but when you go down to grassroots communities, you ask yourself, they said there was this amount for good healthcare services. You don't even see them. During COVID, we could cry because it's like, if they did the job at the beginning, we will not have the level of infected, or we will not have the state of primary healthcare centers look the way they do. For education, the same thing. For infrastructure. So we have the resources, and we are really, really exhausted. We are turning this frustration into advocacy, where we are tired of listening to figures. We are tired of seeing this huge sum of money get into this thing, and they keep on saying inclusive, young people, this is for young people, this is for women. So if I have to dive into what I think we need to, or government or what private sectors need to do, is to be intentional about the investing in young persons. We need to be intentional. We don't want too much talking. We are done with the era of nice talk, sugarcoating, giving long speeches. No, we want action. We want to feel the impact. We don't just want to read these figures anymore. So be intentional about investing in young persons. And when I talk about being intentional about investing in young persons, it's like shifting from token funds to equitable-based flexible financing. We are also promoting a public-private investment platform where young people can be co-owners. We are tired of just being beneficiaries. We want to co-create. We want to be co-owners of this investment. And it is time we stop calling people, young persons or young people like myself, youth of demographic dividends. No, we want to start to change this, the way they addressed us. We want to be looked as investment-grade assets. Yes, we are the future, we are the present, we are doing the things that people feel like it's not going to happen. Like I said, we keep on transforming our frustration because the frustration is too much. But we don't want to go radical. We believe that there is hope, and I'm very, very happy, and I want to thank the bank for inviting me to talk with my co-panelists. This is like, you guys are showing us, yeah, we hear you, young people, we hear you. So thank you, I appreciate that. And also, I would like to also throw more light on what Follow the Money does. Again, because we like money, we want more resources, but we are also intentional about wanting more money and also making sure that we are accountable. We can hold ourselves accountable. We're not just demanding for transparency and accountability from the government institution, from the public or private sectors, but we want to let them know that we, the young people, are watchdogs now. We are watchdogs. We are builders, and we are the people that will create the trust between them and the people in the grassroots communities. We've been talking about trust, trust, trust. Leverage on us young people to build that trust between you and the people. And we want all these programs that we hear people talk about, or government talk about, or public or private sector talk about, put citizens at the center of everything. Sometimes because we want huge figures of impact, we forget that we are talking about persons, human beings. So always try to put human beings, citizens, at the center of every conversation that you have. I can see you smile. Looks like my 5 minutes is over, but we are not just leaders of tomorrow. We are architects of now. Give us the tool. Give us the trust. Give us the terrain, and we'll build a continent that thrives and not just survive, because we really, really are getting tired of the sweet talk and long speeches. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nancy. You are ready. You and I spoke before this panel, and I asked you, are you ready? And you said, I was ready at birth. And I think all of us can see you are ready. You told us about being watchdogs, builders, trust creators, architects of the now. Thank you very much for bringing that dimension to this conversation. I'd like to now move to Mr. Rabah Rahmani from Zenith Bank. African commercial banks are often perceived as risk-averse and overly focused on short-term profitability, sometimes at the expense of long-term development financing. So what governance frameworks or regulatory incentives are needed to ensure that commercial banks play a more active role in supporting development priorities and contribute meaningfully to financial capital development?
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. I will say that the commercial bank, they cannot do things alone. Like the government, they cannot do things alone. Because alone, we go nowhere. Together, we go forward. This is a proverb well known. And I would say, if you go to Africa from the north to the south or east or west, you find similar things. That is to say, there is a volunteer, there is a lot of theories, there is a lot of words, but two things are missing: the volunteer and the vision. The vision. For me, with my experience, I can see that an history of humanity, we can notice that things have been achieved through concrete projects, not only through only words. In Europe, France and Germany became very powerful due to a concrete project by interest. This is the way that Africa should do nowadays to take their own future. There is a conscience on that, fortunately, and they will go forward from that. Because we know that we speak a lot about human resources, the capital, the raw materials. We know that Africa has a lot of that. But all we do to optimize those things. This is the key questions. And all, I will say, the actors are optimizing the resources. Of course, for me, there is 4 pillars which are incontainable that we should follow. This is the strong legal framework agreement, because the investors will never come to a country if on the legal things are not clear, for sure, okay? The second thing is the transparency. The third thing is the interconnection, I would say, between institutional government or institutions like Banque Africaine de Développement and the ZECLAF area nowadays, and the regional integration between partners. But we test the level of efficiency of these pillars if we don't have common project to see exactly if the tools that I have mentioning are concrete. So in order to answer to your questions, for instance, there is a concrete deals project nowadays, which is interesting. I'm not defending the whole industry at all, but if this project succeeds, there is nowadays a big project, one of the biggest in Africa, integrating 12 countries. It is to create a pipeline from Nigeria to Morocco to distribute gas in Europe. It's an amazing project between $23 billion. But it's not my purpose. My purpose is to see all the countries will work all together for that. And will be there a real volunteer or a vision to develop these 12 countries in this industry. That's why we can speak every day, 20 hours to 20 hours on 20 hours. If we don't have concrete project, we go nowhere, I would say. That is to say, for me, bank can be useful on that. We are not perfect, but we are pushing, we are financing the things. Like my previous attendees said that in Burundi, we are a little bit, we have not a large game of products to go forward, but if the project succeeds, believe me, the investor will come because it's concrete. And we need concrete realization in Africa. And there is more and more good initiative in terms of transparency, in terms of fighting against corruption. In Ghana, for instance, for the fund of oil, it has been well noted. In Botswana, nowadays, in Nigeria, there is an initiative for a single account, for more transparency. We speak a lot about digitalization, okay. But I think personally, and story show it before, we need concrete project in Africa to develop a common region. I will remind you one sentences of Adam Smith or David Ricardo, the well-known economist. He says, I have advantages for my country to work with my neighbors. This is my conclusion. That's all.
Very much. Thank you very much indeed for reminding us about the power of regional integration. You gave an interesting perspective that I'd really like to emphasize. Listening to you, really telling us about the power of value addition. Because you talked about this pipeline from Nigeria to Morocco to export gas into Europe. And when we met earlier, you told me you're from Zenith Bank, and I know Zenith Bank to be Nigeria's largest bank. And so let's get some confidence that Africa can export these services around the world, complex financial services, given you come from the Paris office. So thank you very much for those reflections as well. Really, really empowering and validating in a way. I'm going to come to each of you for only a minute, to really tell us, just like the first panel, where do we go? And Prof, be on standby, because I want you to give us, in 2 minutes, what you think about this conversation before we invite VP Beth. So, Monsieur le Ministre, dans 1 minute, on va où maintenant?
Et la question qu'on me pose, on va où? Il faudrait franchement développer l'Afrique. Il faudrait développer l'Afrique parce que tout est là. Il faudrait savoir comment on peut canaliser effectivement les moyens, former les gens sur le fond, faire la réforme des textes réglementaires. D'ailleurs, certains pays sont en train de faire ça. Chez nous, nous avons déjà commencé. Mais il est plus qu'un... Je vous dis franchement, maintenant, il faudrait tout faire pour que l'Afrique se développe. Pour que l'Afrique soit développée, il faut que tout le monde... D'abord, il faudrait travailler, comme nous sommes en train de le faire, des projets régionaux, oui, ce qui est bon. Mais l'Afrique, on n'aimerait jamais que l'Afrique reste toujours derrière. Et nous sommes ici effectivement pour voir comment on peut le développer. Et je vous dis franchement, il suffit de donner des moyens. Il suffit de montrer comment rembourser ces moyens. Il suffit aussi de montrer les gens qui vont faire ces projets et même les exécuter, quitte à ce que demain, la jeunesse de l'Afrique puisse avoir l'air continuer à développer. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister Uwizeye. We now come to you for your 1 minute, Minister Nabe.
Thank you very much. I think what we all talk about it today is about good institutions. We need to have institutions that unite, that help, but also that developed. When you have this kind of institution, the people will be buying those institutions. But also, in our views in Guinea, we don't see our building institution as a cost, but as a sovereign investment. Sovereign investment in the fact that we do investment in road, in water, in electricity. So moving forward, regional integration, ZELCAF is one of the good example. But I think when it comes to financing, I was listening to our brother for the bank, but I think AFDB can play a key role. You have a commercial bank where AFDB can give some concessional loan to have blending financing. Because in our part of the world, everything is a priority. I like to say if everything is a priority, nothing is a priority. So the amount of money that we need is a lot, but at the same time, let's try to with some smart financing, blend financing or other source of financing can help us to move forward. And then we thank you for inviting us here. And then also we invite you to come to the Republic of Guinea and then see what are the stuff that we are doing right now that can be implemented to other part of the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. Monsieur Biteye, Mr. Mamadou Biteye, your 1 minute.
In less than 1 minute, it's going to be a call. I think that we know what to do. The tools exist. But I will make a call to say that African countries must stop to outsource their own capacity building to outside donors. You put your hand where your mouth is. We need to prioritize and seriously invest in our own capacities development. And I want to say that this is not a one-time investment because citizens' needs and aspirations are evolving. Institutions need also to modernize, to evolve. And this means it's a trajectory, it's a journey, not a destination. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Biteye. No, not you. You will close us off because I want us to close off on your youthful energy. So I'm coming to you, Mr. Rabarahmani. Where do we go from here?
I mean, there are a lot of positive things, and personally, I'm very optimistic. But as I said before, we need a volunteer, a vision, and through project. Because when you have a big project or whatever, and all the borrowers from abroad, they will come if you have already a framework agreement, if transparency and so on. That is to say, the materialization of all these tools that we know. We know, as my colleague said before, we know we have the tools and so on. But now we should go to transformation and to work on project with several countries for better integration, because it's great to have institutions, the CLAF and so on. But now we should go forward and to take African people, they should take their own, I will say, wishes to go forward and to attract the foreign investors or whatever, because it makes credibility. And after that, all things will improve automatically. It's not only words, it's act. Thank you.
Indeed, thank you very much. So we're closing out then with you, Nancy. Where do we go?
Thank you so much. So I have 3 points. First, be intentional about investing in young persons and women-led businesses. Second, use Follow the Money as a powerful tool to advocate for transparency and accountability. And if we're intentional about kicking corruption out of our continent, so leverage and follow the money for that, because we are present in 20 African countries. I'm leading Follow the Money in Cameroon, and we're very satisfied with what we are doing. So during COVID, I'm very happy with the first panel to see what the CDC is doing. But I want you to just add that to say that Follow the Money can track international aid, government aid in every sector. So leverage on this powerful tool. We are bringing solutions, like I said. We are done talking, and we are done being frustrated. And third, nothing for people without the people. Be intentional about putting citizens at the center of your conversation, putting women and young persons, and not seeing them as beneficiaries, but as developers, as watchdogs, as those that can weaken, because we are ready to also hold ourselves accountable. So we are tired of going to the West. We want to stay in Africa to build our continent, but give us this trust. We need your trust, we need the terrain, we need your support, and we need your passion and your intentionality about the African and the women and these young persons to make it great. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so, so much. Professor Orama, I'm going to give you 2 minutes to just get your thoughts on this conversation we've had today. A microphone for Professor Orama, please. Chief Economist, AFDB Group.
Thank you very much, Joy, for the excellent moderation, and to the panelists as well. I think the closure cannot be better than what we have heard already. Let's move from talk to action. We all know that quality institutions defines property rights, cost of transaction, innovation ecosystem, disruptive technologies, and everything all of us desire. But on the continent, we're not doing so well. So let's tell ourselves the truth. And why are we not doing so well? There's a word that my brother Mamadou Bite picked on: state capture. African elites, you and I, our leaders, we capture our own institutions. So when we talk about human capital, it's not that we don't have human capital in Africa. We do. Go to Africa's institutions, brightest of all. Go to African diasporas everywhere, bright individuals, well-trained in everything. But why is it not functioning? State capture. African elites capture the government, create the laws, preferential treatments, tax evasion, collusion with external investors that creates all those capital outflows that you are talking about. We have what it takes to make African institutions work for Africa's development. Let's live here and make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor. Thank you so much, Professor Orama, for that. I really would like to thank our panelists for enriching the conversation today, sharing your experiences. I was trying to capture the key points coming out of this, and there's a lot of validation of what came out of the first panel, but I will do it nonetheless, just to echo it. The first point out of this panel is we need clarity of purpose, and we need to be bold about it. Minister Nabe, you told us about renegotiation. Why is this off the table? So if Africa's capital, Africa's assets are to work for Africa's development, bold leadership is critical. The second point is we do have instruments, as we said in the first one. What we heard in this one is sovereign wealth funds, for example. And listening to the conversation, I thought there is an echo around the whole issue around renegotiating the architecture, the international architecture of finance. So that is another instrument that can help us here. The third point is really getting confident about the fact that Africa's natural capital can be a major part of wealth creation. But as Minister Owizeye told us, it must be well governed and it needs credit. Credit is critical for the value addition we're talking about and the transformation. The fourth point is around inclusivity. If we had a doubt about the need for inclusivity, I think these conversations really made it clear, especially from our representative from Follow the Money, that women have to be at the heart of it. Young people have to be at the heart of it. And as you told us rightly, these are not just beneficiaries, it's an investment grade asset. I heard that. The final point is that knowledge matters. And knowledge is critical to help us understand what's going, to innovate on the next level of effective institutions. Before I invite VP Beth, let me just say that, Mr. Bite, you said something that was so profound that I'd like for all of us to think about as we get ready to leave. And it's really this point about you and your role in this conversation. What you said is leading self. And you said it is about you in your ecosystem. All the people here matter. All the people here hold responsibility that's critical to what happens next on Africa's institutions. So yes, leading self is crucial. VP Beth, maybe before you come, should we take a photo? Or should we take a photo and then have VP Beth do the closing? Let's do a photo quickly, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've heard a diversity of perspectives across this 2-hour session, united by shared commitment and vision to drive sustainable development across Africa for Africa and led by Africa. It's been an insightful discussion, shared experiences, explored innovations to strengthen institutions and governance for the betterment of Africa's development and the people that we serve. And I want to extend my gratitude to the esteemed speakers and panelists who really brought your own expertise, firsthand knowledge, and your insights inform our reflections presented today and shape our understanding of the challenges, but also opportunities ahead. And I speak for all of us when I say we're inspired by the commitment and also the dedication shown on the stage today, and discussions about Africa's sustainable and inclusive economic growth help pave the way for stronger institutions to more effectively harness Africa's capital assets for development. These include human capital, natural capital, financial capital, as well as business or entrepreneurship capital, and they remain the leading drivers of economic transformation. So, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, out of today's thematic knowledge session, we can leave this venue with a clear vision of the challenges that call out for our attention. The African Development Bank research estimates that the funding gap to accelerate Africa's socio-economic transformation to achieve the United Nations SDGs is $402 billion annually, and that's billion with a B. So that's a lot, but today's session sets out ways to help close that gap. So we need innovative funding mechanisms. During today's session, we heard about the huge potential for raising funds from Africa's diaspora, for example, attracting financing through diaspora bonds. Second, Africa must pursue governance around its natural resources. Panelists spoke to the need to improve institutional governance so that Africa's natural resources can benefit its people. And third is curbing illicit financial flows. And simply put, our panelists said that Africa cannot continue to lose nearly $88 billion per year in illicit financial flows. This remains a growing concern. We must address this challenge. And lastly, we must invest in the continent's youth. Africa, as a region, has the fastest growing population on Earth, and estimated to reach near 2.5 billion people just by the year 2050. With a median age of 19 years old, we know that youth is a priority. I'd like to close by saying the African Development Bank Group is and has been and will remain committed to being at the forefront of promoting economic growth and social progress across the continent. Our mission is to deliver financial and technical support for our regional member countries, and the bank accomplishes this through transformative products that reduce poverty and bring inclusive and sustainable growth. And as we head out of this venue, and for some of us out of Abidjan later today, let us not forget the emphasis about the importance of economic governance and the role of institutions in driving development. Let our inspiration from today's session motivate us to support stronger institutional collaboration. Let us advocate for more coordination with and resources for African governments. Let us help them build more effective governance and institutional systems to manage capital in all of its forms. Thank you very much.